Hey there YouTube, Panda here, and oh shit, there we go. Hey there YouTube, Panda here. I have now pressed play, and I've run the commentary for you guys. This time, I figured that for those of you who wished to stick with me and continue watching, but may not have that much knowledge of the game or any knowledge of the game, I figured that this would be a good opportunity to sort of talk about the kind of things that occur, what I'm trying to do, what the end of goal is, how you win, how you lose, stuff like that. So this is actually going to be a tournament replay. From me, I am playing against BRTNY, possibly Brittany Zerg. I think he and or she was a Grandmaster last season, and could be this season too. Not 100% sure. Of course, I'm actually, I finally got fraps fixed, which is like, yay! I figured out what was wrong. It took me a week, but I did it. So now I can actually have content. It was just I went into the next day and tried to record something and it just kept shutting off. Made me sad. But anywho, I'll be playing Terran, and obviously I'll be facing a Zerg. This is Cloud Kingdom. It's actually new in the ladder pool for this season. My initial thoughts about this map: I think it is bad for TvP. It is quite easy for Protoss to take a fair amount of bases, and everywhere you can really engage, there happen to be choke points. Dropping is quite good, but aside from that, you're really in a tough spot. TvZ, same thing applies, except it's better for Terran, obviously, because of siege tanks, and the ease of dropping is always going to be good. So, why don't we focus on my gameplay? Terran is a bit easier to grasp to those people that are new. I will also be talking about strategy and what I'm doing in this game, so if you happen to play the game, good for you. I think you'll still get something out of this. So I'm actually going to be going mech this game. I think mech is quite good on this map, and some pro players tend to agree. Obviously, in the GSL, this is now been in for a little bit over a month from the January GSL, or the first season, I guess they call it now, because it takes about 2 months. I'm going to be going Tech Lab first. I'm opening a Reaper here. Basically what this allows me to do, it is an infantry unit that is able to jump up cliffs, which is actually quite good for this map, because you can cliff jump, avoid having to go in ramps. Usually you see people put spires around. I'm sorry for the momentary lag of the game. I just had to restart my computer to get fraps working again. Alright, there we go. Everything is smooth. It's able to jump cliffs, it can 3-shot workers. They're pretty good en masse early game, but late game they kind of suck in big engagements. So one thing I'm going to want to do is harass early game, try and scout, see what my opponent's tech is. So I guess the key thing here, when I try to explain this game to people that don't necessarily play, is, whoa, but we're watching everybody, how come you can't see the other person? If we take a look at the visions, this is what the Zerg sees. That's actually his camera vision. And this is what I see. This is my camera vision. So there is nothing aside from what you scout. And of course, I don't think I've sent an SCV scout this game, because Reaper's pretty good at doing that. TVT, I might send an SCV scout and a Reaper scout, but here in TvZ, not really an issue. I'm going to be expanding behind this and putting another gas down. I'm going for Hellions behind this. What I want to do, so Terran is my race. Terran is good early game, but susceptible to pressure, so you need to put down enough defense, you need to have enough units out to properly defend, and you need to scout in case they're making a bunch of attacking units to come try and kill you. What I'm going to be trying to do is I'm going to try and slow him down as much as possible. Right now, he has to move a queen down, and that's good. Anything he's not doing, not focusing 100% on macro, is good for me. Here I'm trying to pick off drones, target firing the weak ones. But I'm just trying to be a nuisance here. I see that he doesn't have any more gas. And gas generally leads to tech in the game. You see I already have 2 geysers. I'm going up to my second tier of tech. Factory units, Hellions. Meanwhile, I'm getting this command center. The goal of the game is to balance economy, technology, and army to survive attacks from your opponent and to end up killing your opponent before he kills you. The straight up reason you win a game is when your opponent has absolutely nothing left on the map, and that was sloppy from me. I think I may have had some lag in this game too. So not computer lag, but internet lag. So in my attempt to scout, I think I've done pretty well for myself. I noticed that he's going speedling. I didn't scout this Evo chamber in the Roach Warren, but I'm assuming that that's pretty much a given nowadays. Roach Warren, this Roach play is pretty popular. Meanwhile, I'm actually getting Cloak Banshees behind this. He scouts that regrettably, but he didn't get it in my main because I left it to depot. So now that I have an expansion, this allows me to get more SCVs and SCVs of course mine minerals, and they also mine gas. That's basically how your income works. Take a look at the income tab. I am down, but that's simply because of my race. I've been constantly producing pretty much all game. And now I'm getting Cloak Banshees to harass some more. While you're harassing, you generally force the opponent into defending your harass and not attack you. I am using that to my advantage. I don't have a bunker up. I don't have that much defense. If we take a look at the units, I have 6 Hellions and a Banshee. That's really not much if he chooses to just mass roaches and come kill me. But I'm erring on the side of him staying in his base. I'm willing to take a little bit of a risk. Of course, he's getting a layer now. This is to access his second tier of tech. Meanwhile, I'm killing all of this creep. Creep, the Zerg can actually see everything that is where creep is spread. It also increases Zerg movement speed of their units on creep. Let's see. So basically, making SCVs, all of this economy stuff, is just to get to the late game to try and kill your opponent. The way I'm playing right now, mech is very strong in the late game, very, very strong. But it's really weak when it's not in a big ball of doom and death and explosions. He's actually getting a couple more queens, and I like this play, especially on this map. I think Blizzard classifies this as a small map, but it's very wide and it has very many expansions. He's also getting a Spire here. These are flying units that can pose a threat to me as if I don't have Thors out in time, but I think I have an armory going down sometime. Yeah, double armory. I should be okay defending that. So meanwhile, I'm being active with my Hellions, being active with my Banshees. These, of course, it forces them to commit to something off of 2 base. You notice that this third is actually pretty late. He'd like to take this around 8 minutes. And if you see at the timer, it is now almost 10 minutes. And Hellions are really good against Lings. Of course, now he's getting Roaches, which Hellions are not so good against, but Banshees happen to be quite good against Roaches because they can't actually shoot up. I scouted the Spire in the meantime, and I'm also getting an Engineering Bay. And he's just sending Lings to sort of scout what I'm doing. Ideally, I should be throwing down a command center sometime soon, but I think I wanted to get Thors out before then. So these little buildings here, these are my supply. If you've ever played an RTS game, supply also goes by population. I believe it was pop in War 3. For those of you that played Warcraft 3, it was quite a good game. Meanwhile, still being active with my Hellions, and scouting these roaches, and possibly dying to said roaches. No, only lose 1. It's pretty good. So, these are actually upgrades, these buildings here, these 3 guys. I won't be going any bio units, so I'm not getting bio upgrades. Instead, I'm getting mech upgrades. So the 3 units that I'm going to be getting this game, for the large majority of the game at least. Hellions, they do splash damage, they're good against light units. Thors, they're good against pretty much everything, but mutas especially. And tanks. Of course, tanks are pretty much the same unit they were in Brute War. They just do a lot less damage. They kind of suck, which makes me sad. This Overseer is a detector. My Banshees are cloaked, so they can't actually be seen by regular units. It takes a special kind of unit to detect them. And here I have missile turrets on my base now. This muta switch was the cause for my not getting a third up. Generally, I like to get macro hatches, or macro bases, especially on a map this big. Meanwhile, I actually, I've done some more damage on this, but I haven't actually sniped it. But it's 13 minutes and Zerg still hasn't got his third base up. That's pretty good for me. The only investment I took was Cloak Banshees. I am getting high-sec auto-tracking. A lot of people like to wait to get this upgrade, but if they're going mass muta, it's a pretty good thing to have. And here we go. I've been producing Cloak Banshees this entire time. Reason is, it forces him to have more than one Overseer out on the map. And you can do stuff like this. A nice transfuse, but in the end, I allowed to snipe it and get away. He wants bases so he can get more economy, so that eventually he can come kill me and have enough units left to be okay for a counterattack. Denying him a third base is huge. Zergs need to take a third base faster than Terrans, generally. So, meanwhile, my +1/+1 is done. If you want to deal with Mutalisks, and somebody's like just going Ling Bling Muta against mech, you want to rush +2 as fast as possible because that makes Mutas go boom, and meanwhile I'm getting some more turrets. He is sort of balancing his tech between Mutas and Roaches at this point, from what I've scouted, but he does actually have an infestation pit going down, and this opens up the third tier of tech. It gains access to Hive tech, which gives you a lot of really good late game units. If you're meching, if you're going bio, always get a Raven, TvZ, especially on a map like this. People love to make baneling mines. And let's take a look at the income tab again, just to see. Yeah, the fact that we're even, and he has a third base, he hasn't even gotten a third base up is huge for me. That's a really big advantage. And of course now he's just trying to deny this third base. I realize he doesn't have an overseer over here, but unfortunately that Banshee doesn't have a cloak. So I'm just content to try and make the mutas come hit the missile turrets. And meanwhile, that Raven that I was talking about, you can actually see these roaches because they're burrowed underground. It's debatable whether or not I should have engaged here, but I still think that it was a good decision to run away. And I only lost one Thor from it, whereas I could have lost my entire army. And mech takes a very long time to rebuild. Meanwhile, he's actually double expanded, which is quite a good decision. And he is working on +2. I have 2/2 coming as well. And this is his hive. This allows him to get the latest and greatest tech, the best in the Zerg arsenal. Whereas, generally, battle cruisers and Thors are considered tier 3. So these guys are really tier 3. Tanks are tier 2, but I haven't had to make any of them until I see that he's friendly committing to roaches and there go ahead and start tank production. Let's see. So you use the money that you gain from all these SCVs and bases to make production structures to make more attacking units or defending units, however you want to look at it. This I'm actually making defensively. If you want to play mech on this map, you have to make planetary fortresses everywhere, especially at chokes. And you never want to take these rocks down. That's a Zerg's job, or the attacking Terran in TvT. You want a good concave here with tanks, you want some AoE splash damage, it's all good. Alright, so meanwhile, I've been missing some of my harass, I'm sorry. I'm pretty active on the map, so it's hard to observe sometimes. And here, this is another reason why Thors are awesome. I put down a Raven PDD here too, but he was just sacking those to make more supply for Corruptors. Alright, so Corruptors make Broodlords, which are sort of the endgame Zerg unit. And meanwhile, he's actually maxed on roaches. If we take a look at the supplies, it seems really that I'm in a worse situation, but if we take a look at the units, 6 Thors and 5 siege tanks can easily take that many roaches. And meanwhile, I have Blue Flame Hellions going around. This is mainly to stall, for me to get my army up to 200. 200 is the max supply you can have. You can only have as many units as 200 supply will allow. Different units cost different amounts of supply, but it's really not necessary to know all that, the different supply costs and such. I'm finally getting some more tech up. These are really to aid in production of my Thors. I should really be getting 3/3. You will float minerals when you go mech, but I think because I spotted the Broodlords from somehow I spotted the Broodlords, so I want to sort of save that to produce into Thors. Thors are really good against Broodlords. A lot of people just write them off, especially with 3/3. Generally, the metagame is it's to get plus flyer attacks, which don't actually affect Broodlings, which do the majority of the damage of Broodlords. And this, see, he can't engage into this. I have Banshees. He has nothing they can shoot up. These tank siege back here do a fair amount of damage when they're sieged, 60 versus armored. And roaches only have 150 health. 145 health, my bad. And he does actually have an overseer over here. And meanwhile, this is the same Banshee that I used in the beginning of the game. It's been active. You always want to try and use the units that you have. I mean, they're costing supply, so you're really sort of committed to them being worth something. I could be getting 2 more factories here, but it's really not worth it until I'm in a spot where I have bank minerals and I'm looking to remax as fast as possible. That's just me pausing. On replays, it goes through. So he's actually looking in a really good position. He's going to get 5 bases right now. I have my 4th pretty secure, which is really good for me. I'm actually in a pretty good position. But he's looking to come counterattack here. Just skip around my army. My army is very immobile, and his army is very mobile. So I'm putting up the supply depot, but it really won't pose much of a threat to this amount of roaches. And he does actually split up. I like this move a lot. He only goes in with a small amount. He could have wrecked my production, but he really doesn't have enough bank to instantly remax. And meanwhile, I am actually maxed. So I'm not too worried about losing some of these. I'm pretty much just letting the Banshees go to work. I can lose SCVs at this point. It's not really that big of a deal. I still have 52. Late game, I'm going to make a bunch of orbitals anyway, so here I'm starting with the positional command centers. And generally, as Terran, you want to sacrifice some of your SCVs late game anyway. So my 3-3 is almost done, as opposed to his 2-1. Or 2-3, my bad. So he has 3 attack and 2 armor. And meanwhile, he's getting as much gas as he can possibly allow, but he still doesn't have that much gas comparatively. But he does have a fair army of Broodlords at this point, and Corruptors. Corruptors are pure air-to-air. Broodlords attack only ground, so the mix of the 2 of them is pretty good. And here he's actually running to try and snipe this. I'm not sure if I have... Yeah, I'm just starting building armor. Because I forgot it, actually. You always want to have building armor and high-sec auto-tracking. If you're playing mech versus Zerg. And if you're playing Terran, it's going pure bio, too, as well. So here we go. I've decided that it's time to push out with my army. I have some Vikings to deal with the Broodlords that I know are coming, but they're not upgraded yet. So I'm willing to wait on massing them. Because every supply you invest with when you're maxed, it has to be worth its weight. If it doesn't pull its weight, then it's really no use to you at all. So he is actually coming here to block off my escape. I see this, and I choose to keep the tanks unsieged, I believe, because of this amount of Broodlords. And I have the Thors attack him. And if we take a look at the supplies, he's lost a lot of his roaches, and he's losing Broodlords still. Even though he can remax, this is a pretty good trade for me. I'm willing to take out all these tech units. We can actually look at the units lost too. And meanwhile, I'm remaxing on, I'm getting some upgrades, remaxing on Thors and Vikings. Since he's not committing that heavily to Infestors, I don't really need to get Ghosts out. And yeah, these are the units lost. He's lost just about 20,000 resources, and I'm about 5,000 under that. So I'm really content to just get out of here. To lose these units to more roaches when they spawn would be a really, really bad thing. Because Zerg units are really expendable. See, he's actually throwing these into a counterattack in the hopes to kill some of my production again. He's not new to this. He's not new to the strategy. He's used it previously. And the supply depot is actually still gone. This is a good decision by him. I think that I should have definitely repaired or transformed this again, as it was killed. Oh, here's some... Yeah, I got some Hellions over there still too. I'm sorry, I am missing some of the harass that went down during the game. I'll take a look at the work is lost soon. I'm just trying to defend with whatever I have because I know that this is a desperation move. Because I took out his mining base, he really only has 2 mining bases now. If we take a look at his natural, it's almost mined out. See, none of the 8 mineral patches are left, you just have 2 guys there. Not that big of a deal. Meanwhile, Thors are pretty good. Generally, when you're meching, the goal is to, if the infestor count is low enough, the goal is to max on pure Thors. The reason for that, they're really good against Broodlords. I have an hour-long game against Gazwazur. It's the guy who took out Pult at MLG. He plays for Complexity. It's a really long game, but I might upload it sometime. where just Thor's absolutely shit on like 30 Broodlords. It was really funny. Because he didn't have enough Infestors. Of course you can roll Parasite, but that'll only get you so far, especially if you have Ghosts out. Meanwhile, I'm being active with these Vikings, or should be active with these Vikings, trying to kill Overlords. And I'm also taking another base. This is a huge step for me, because if I lean to split the map, taking this base and setting up a siege position right here, that's pretty much game for the Zerg. But I don't feel comfortable enough to do that yet. So meanwhile, I'm just content to keep making my units. He, meanwhile, is trying to remax on Broodlord, Corruptor, and Roaches with some Infestors down there. And I really like this play. This ledge is really annoying. I'm not sure. Generally, I build supply depots on high ground, but a planetary fortress can't actually attack up there, so I may need siege tanks in the future. I'm going to use ladder to just kind of refine my strategies for this map, as I'll probably be meching TvT and TvZ. Meanwhile, I'm actually keeping my army here, away from my expansions, because after I see these spines, he really doesn't want to attack outside of this area. So I know that he won't overextend himself, because he's still down in bases. And this, meanwhile, was actually killed off by Roaches, but I floated it off. It's no big deal. Alright, so I'm approaching max now. I have some more units in the queue. I have a fair amount of Vikings and enough tanks to kill off Infestors in case he does decide to get an Neural Parasite. I said I would also take a look at Workers Guild. So it's pretty even actually, just around 50 for both of us. Which means I really wasn't that efficient. It's hard to harass on this map with Hellions late game. Because of the chokes, it's really easy to deter harassment. And meanwhile, I'm actually going over to just sort of double check that his army is not over here. And he does have some Infestors doing some work. But this is what you eventually want to go for a mech army. It can't really be killed cost effectively by Zerg, whereas you lose only enough units to be... I mean, the units that you have will do work. They'll do work for you. They'll get the job done. It'll be okay. So I do have the tank siege this time. It's to focus fire Infestors. If you see the pink like highlighting, clicking around Infestors, that's because I'm target firing them down. But I think I do unsiege them relatively soon. As you really want to be careful about friendly splash damage, and that's really the main reason people unsiege tanks. So he's forced to attack into this position because of his spines, and it really wasn't cost effective for him at all, because even though he had a really good defensive position here, it was at the bottom of a ramp. And if I have the high ground with Vikings, and he only got 2 Funkles off, he didn't really kill all my Vikings. So now it's pretty much just... I do have Thor's rallied over here to kill the Infestors. But now it's pretty much just march into his base and win. Sometimes you can get a Zerg that has enough minerals to remax instantly on wings. And that can actually kill a pure Thor army with little to no Hellion support. But there are very few times when you can do that, and he didn't have enough high enough economy to... Here he is actually trying to counterattack one more time, but I don't think this will be effective, especially now with building armor. 5 armor. Armor negates damage, so the Roaches do 22 damage. If they attack this, it'll only do 17 damage a hit. Meanwhile, he's pulling drones out, but it's pretty much winding down as I'm just sieging closer to his main. So yeah, that's pretty much... I hope the beginning was a bit of an intro. If there's anything you would like me to work on, to tell you guys next time, that just leave it in the comment section and I'll get to it. Other thing is, do you want me to cast with health bars on? I really find, especially when I play Bio, you will learn a lot about the game if you look at the way people are focus firing and pulling back. You can't do that without health bars. I really think that health bars help a lot during casts, and I would like to see more of them in tournaments. But I know that there are some people out there that do not like it. So go ahead and voice your opinions and I'll get back to you on that. So I hope you enjoyed, and peace. I hope to have more videos out now that I actually know what to do with fraps and everything. See you guys.